Hi, I'm Debra Atkinson, founder of The Voice for Fitness and the author of Navigating Fitness After 50, your GPS for choosing programs and professionals that you can trust. I'm going to teach you how to lose weight and double your energy without extreme exercise, diets, or pills. Thanks for joining me. So if you're like most women I know and most of the female clients that I've worked with in the last 30 years in the fitness industry who are approaching the age of 50 or wherever perimenopause may happen for them, postmenopause, during menopause, you're struggling with the idea that the exercise you have done or the fact that you haven't ever needed to exercise isn't working anymore, and what you thought eating right is no longer working for you either. So the focus of this training is to focus on the things you need to focus on in order to lose weight, get back in touch with great shape, double your energy, and love walking into your closet. So if you have a vision for yourself and you know it will make a real difference in your health and your energy and you being 100% of the person you are meant to be, you're going to learn strategies for living, eating, and exercising better without boot camp, burpees, or kale alone. Whether you're just beginning to realize the need to exercise and you feel overwhelmed with all of the choices, frustrated with where to start, or you've been on this exercise path for a while, you've been watching what you eat, thinking that you're eating right, but you don't have it figured out because suddenly there's weight and there's challenges that you've never experienced before. Hang on, I've got you covered. There are major changes for most women about this point in our lives in stress levels, hormones, career, lifestyle changes that make a difference in the way we approach weight loss, weight management, or just our fitness and health overall. I'm going to talk a little more about those changes in a bit, but really the important piece is that you level up right now while you're aware of the problem or aware that it might be a problem for you later. And realize that what we learned over the last 20, 30, 40, depending on where you are, years in your adult life, is not what works really well for the long term. And it's not your fault. It's not that what we learned was wrong. It's that we know so much more now within the last 5 years than we learned probably in the last 50 within the nutritional world and the exercise world, so that we can really target why isn't more exercise and less calories working anymore. And now that we know that that formula no longer works, we actually are closer to knowing what does. And I'm going to share more about that with you in a bit. This is not a quick fix, lose weight fast diet plan. We're not going to lose 10 pounds in 3 days, only to gain back 20 in the next 6. And if you're thinking that you need to spend hours exercising, you'll be pleased, maybe shocked and surprised to find out that it really requires a lot less exercise than most women actually are already doing. In fact, cutting down on your exercise is going to be one of the first things that I'm going to ask you to do. And I'll talk more about that later. What I am going to do is teach you how to make more powerful decisions regarding your eating, your exercise, and your lifestyle habits so that you can have the weight and the energy that you feel great about. And you might actually be wondering, how old am I? How did I get here? And how did I figure it out? Well, it's taken me a long time. I've been in the fitness industry for 30 years, but I am also just freshly 50. I'm the tail end of the baby boomers. And what I know from my last 24 months has probably taught me more about you than I've ever known in the first 28 years of my fitness career. So I shifted gears and became more of an online marketer, coach and webinar provider for my clients. So I coach clients across the nation, solo or in private groups. In other words, I've been sitting in front of a computer screen for a good 8 hours a day. And like you, all too often, I will recline with my laptop and catch up with my friends on Facebook. So I've become a lot more sedentary and inactive in the last 24 months at the ripe age of 49 than I ever have in my younger years when I was teaching multiple fitness classes and working with multiple personal training clients every single day. So I get you. And maybe like you, I wasn't born knowing what to do. I wasn't born genetically gifted and thin and tall and long-legged, still waiting for those to come in. But I learned a love for activity and a joy of movement at some point, and in college shifted majors dramatically from graphic design to exercise physiology and later sports and exercise psychology, so I could really help with the behavior change part of it. It's not knowing what to do that's really hard. It's unlearning old habits and relearning good ones and staying on that path long enough to make it stick. And that is what I'm going to help you with. So let me ask you a question. Are you struggling to eat right and exercise, but honestly confused about what that is because it's so fluid when you look online? Or are you really eager and interested in joining a boot camp to get results, but really you're afraid of being hurt? Or are you struggling with added stress right now that's affecting your sleep levels, or maybe sleep levels are affecting your stress? So it's difficult to get started with an exercise program. So please, if you've been resistant to exercise and to nutrition, or you've been guilty of saying, I know that, I've tried that, please stay tuned for the second video in this short series, because I'm going to dive into why what you've tried before and thought was right based on what you read and were taught actually is probably backfiring on you now, and how you can turn that around when you put the pieces together about what's going on now, what you're experiencing, and what we know now in science that even 3 years ago we didn't know. So what is the number one mistake, and why can't we lose the weight? What we've done in the past is approached better exercise, a smaller waistline, thinner thighs, first of all by calories in and calories out. We've looked at it as if we exercised more and burnt more calories and ate less and took in fewer calories, that the pure math of that gap between what we burned and needed and what we actually had available for fuel created a weight loss for us. When we were younger and we did that, temporarily it worked. The success of the diet industry, the billion-dollar diet industry, is based on the fact that temporarily most diets work. Long-term, even mid-term, most diets don't for 95% of people who diet. In fact, 66% of people who do lose weight gain it back and then some. The biggest problem with that is not just the loss gain and that's hard on your body. It's that when we lose weight, we lose muscle and fat. When we gain weight back, especially after the age of 50, as hormones change and metabolisms slow, that seems to be the corner right there at menopause, we gain back weight primarily in fat. So over years of dieting, losing muscle fat, gaining fat, losing muscle fat, gaining fat, losing muscle and fat, gaining fat, we've in the end gotten fatter because of our diet and those kind of extreme exercise habits. It's still not too late. So there's plenty of studies to show that people in their 70s and their 80s who begin strength training and exercise and proper nutrition, we'll talk about that, actually can gain back more lean muscle mass and prevent any further losses to improve their body composition, meaning they're going to be less fat in the end. So what's the second reason? Because there are a lot of them. So it's first of all looking at simply the calorie in and calorie out. We know that's not it. The second reason is we ignore the other factors in life. So we tend to think in isolation, and if you want an exercise program, you go to an exercise instructor or an exercise video, or I'm hoping a personal trainer like me or someone I've trained. You get an exercise prescription and you may get some information about nutrition, but there's a scope of practice there that the personal trainer is focused on the exercise. So maybe you need a nutrition or meal plan. So you might go to a nutritionist or a dietitian. Your nutritionist dietitian is going to focus on the nutrition. So unless you have someone who's a qualified trainer and a nutritionist, and there are many more of those than there ever used to be, no one is quarterbacking for you based on the exercise you're doing. Here's the nutrition you need. Based on your demands for today or yesterday, we need to make sure that we do this. Those things should happen in coordination, but there are 5 other areas in your life that also affect what will happen as far as your weight goes. Your weight, your fitness level, and your stress response. So let's talk about that. The third reason we can't lose weight is because of stress primarily, and it starts there. So if you were going to do one thing today, tonight, tomorrow, to change your odds of success with reaching an optimal weight and an optimal shape that you feel great about, it would be find ways to reduce your stress level. If you are stressed about work, finances, you're stressed about your home, you're stressed about your children, your aging parents, a condition that you have or someone that you love has, whatever it might be, what you really need to do is find a way to solve that. It doesn't have to go away, but your coping skills need to come up, and you need to have a way to release some of that stress. And maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's simply a walk out in nature. Maybe it's being with a pet. There's proof that says petting your dog actually reduces your blood pressure and also improves theirs within seconds of your hand on their fur. Small things like that. Music, nature, exercise, meditation, prayer, it depends on you and is very unique to you. So no one else can tell you what works for you in terms of stress. But if you were going to do one thing, and here's why, it's related to the hormone cortisol. What happens when cortisol is in your system in too high a level? We need some, like we need cholesterol in a certain level. When it gets too high, then we've got issues. What happens with cortisol is it makes you more likely to store belly fat, deep visceral belly fat, the kind that's firm and not pinchable, and that causes much more risk of heart disease. So if you can avoid stress or reduce your stress level by increasing your coping skills, you will be less likely to pack on weight and hold it there because it gets harder to budge once it moves in. So those 3 things that are big reasons why it's harder to lose weight after the age of 50 than it ever has been before in your life are that we've factored in the calorie in, calorie out for far too long and lost muscle while we gain fat over those earlier years in our lives. Now we're paying for it. The second thing is that we thought in isolation, focus on diet or focus on exercise, and that will be the thing and what I need to do. And the last thing is that we've ignored or have never even had a conversation about what was going on with our hormones outside of, on a monthly basis, what kind of bloating might happen and how much energy or not you might have had. And hormones are going to be a big part of your success in the future. So tune in for the second video when I talk about some of the mistakes we've made in the past with exercise and how we can change them so that now we know and we can benefit from it in our future. And until then, this has been Debra Atkinson, your voice for fitness.